Okay, what's up YouTube? Figured I'd do a quick video while I'm doing this because I got to tear it apart anyway, and I haven't really seen too many videos as far as good instructions on how to do this. But my main issue is I want to change some of the bulbs behind it. Currently I have them all where they light up all red. I don't know if you can really see that. And then likewise down here, let me shut my flash off, and they all light up red when the lights are on. Now one of the issues I found is that when it's running, the white LEDs I have in for my check engine light and my overdrive light that are here are they're still kind of staying illuminated, so I think it's something with the LEDs. So as you can see, I got plenty of LEDs to go through and try to do that. So I figured I'd just give a rundown of how you get to your gauge bezel in the Crown Vics. So first you'll want to start by tearing off the part that goes across here, and it's the easiest to do if you start at that corner and pop it out. Now when you pop it out, you're going to notice that on mine I actually tucked it back, but you will have two of these. One is a constant power to where you do not need the key in your ignition, or you don't need it in the auxiliary run to pop the trunk. You can just hit the button and the trunk will pop. I prefer not to go that route, so I just tucked it back in because I'm not using it at all. But if for any reason you would ever need a constant hot and a constant ground to use for anything you might be looking at doing, there is one back there, so instead of having to run it from the whole battery in, it'll definitely help you out. But you'll want to undo that. You'll undo your radio, which the person I bought it from, it's been driving me nuts. That's what they dealt with, or they left me with for their stereo aftermarket installation, so I'm not particularly a fan of that. So I'm going to clean that up a lot too and make it look a little more presentable. But then you'll have a bolt here, here, and here, and then on the opposite side you'll have one right there, and a last one right there. If you're putting it back together and you end up losing some, it's not very crucial that you have all of them, but I operate in the metric system, so they are 7 millimeters, and then once you get that side open, you'll have to come over to here and get these two plugs off for your lighting. And then my defrost plug is actually right there that I had to pop off. So I'm going to pause this, undo that, and then show you what you're looking at once you get this part off. Okay, now that I got that off, one of the things, if you're doing anything with your instrument cluster lights, will definitely help you is this part will actually pop out. It's your headlight switch. And one of the things is, if you have an interceptor that was police vehicle, it'll have that on the bottom, which basically all that is saying to you is you are unable to dim the lights, your panel lights, which whatever, I don't really do that anyway, so I don't really run my lights as very often anyway, unless it's dark out, of course. But you'll pop that off, and then you can just plug this back in, and then you have access to do that without having to bring the piece back up and put it back in. So once you get that piece off that I showed you, you'll be left with a 7 millimeter bolt there, and two on this side, and a correction, two on that side. For some reason, mine only had the two, so I'm gonna have to get to a salvage yard and get the other two, but obviously the cluster isn't going anywhere. It's pretty stable. Now if you're doing anything with just changing your gauges, if you do the sandpaper mod where you just sand the back of the gauges, the green stuff off the back, then you can just come up here and undo these hex bits, and then this plastic will pull off, which I'll have to do that anyway, because when I had mine apart, I didn't set my temperature gauge correct, so when it's on, running at the normal temperature, it's actually higher than it should be, so it makes the car look like it's running hotter than it should be. So it should be right about in here, maybe a little higher. So so I'm gonna try and level it off so I can take care of that. So I will pause this and go from there and show you what you'll be looking at once you undo those 4 bolts, in my case the 2. Okay, so your next step will be you'll have to take off your panel here, your plastic kick panel, and then behind that will be a metal one. You'll have a couple screws. They're going to be 10mm. You'll have one here, one here, one here, one up there, and another one right there. So once you get that off, then that'll give you access to your gear selector, which will, if you follow it, it comes the whole way up to right there. It's a little cable. Some people refer to it as a string, but it's actually basically a high tension piece of cable. So you'll come over here, and then there's this bolt right here. You'll undo that, and the whole thing will just, you'll get a lot of slack to where you can actually just pop that off with a small flathead then, and you should be able to pull that out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and get the gauge bezel out. Okay, now that I took out that little bolt, you can see that this gear selector actually pulls up and you have slack in your gear selector. So what you'll want to do is try and do this with one hand. You want to reach in here with a screwdriver and just bring it up and over that nipple. So I will be able to do it with one hand. Normally you'll have to use 2. So